Cool.
Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is criticspod. Our email is critics at ihatecritics.net if you care to email us ever. Listen to us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. If you rate and review the show, give us a 5-star review. It does help us with our algorithm, and we are doing a giveaway. If you head over to our social media pages at CriticsPod. Sean, tell me what that giveaway is.
It's the Great War of Archimedes and Deliver Us from Evil, each on Blu-ray.
Yeah, so get a copy of those by heading over to wherever you listen to us, and then let us know you left the review. And we will read it on the air.
That's right.
We're live on YouTube. Usually a few minutes before we go live, I'll send out a notice on Facebook and Twitter to let you know we're going to go live Saturday, Sunday, Monday, depending on when we're busy or when we're not busy.
No one expects the Everyone's a Critic podcast.
Yep. And patreon.com/criticspod, the best way to help support the podcast. And if you want to get some Everyone's a Critic podcast merch, head over to ihatecritics.net and click on our TeePublic page up in the right hand corner, or just search Critics Pod in TeePublic. All right, let's jump right into it and let's talk about Black Widow.
Which movie is that? Is that the little independent film?
No, we'll do that later on. Middle of the show.
Middle of the show, okay. Black Widow stars Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, and Rachel Weisz. Of course, a story from the Marvel Universe, the character of Natasha Romanoff. We revisit her origin stories as well as her time just in between before she died in the Avengers universe, and a little side quest she went on involving her past. Very good movie, I thought. I was really entertained beginning to end. I think this should be, for me, this should be the goodbye. And I said in my review that I think this should be the goodbye for Scarlett Johansson in the Marvel Universe. This is the way to say goodbye, is the way she said it here. The character had a nice ending in her death, the way she went out in Endgame, and here this is just a nice little bow on that I thought was kind of perfect. And like I said, I really enjoy her. I enjoy what she does. She's very entertaining in this role. She's very entertaining in these movies. There are other things for her to do now. She's got, she's so incredibly talented. We'll talk about that movie later on. But she's so incredibly talented. It is time for her to step up into another realm as an actor and do things that mean more to her than probably this does. Not that this isn't important to her, I'm sure, because she met a lot of really close friends on this, and people who became very close with her, and so I'm sure that means a great deal to her. But it's time for her to do something else now, and now she can do that if she's actually stepping away from this.
Yeah, I mean, it helped make her a star. I mean, she was on her way there anyway, but this definitely elevated her to that next level pretty quick. This movie's as good as it could have been, given the fact that they never made this earlier. Had they made it early on in the Marvel stories, I think it could have been one of the better ones. Instead, they were handcuffed with what they could do because now she's dead. They've told so many stories, and you have to work within the framework. You're not still developing the story. The story has already been told, and now you're going backwards and telling a story within just a little side story. But because of that, I thought it was really, really good. I don't think the criticism of it's very fair because of the fact that it's handcuffed. Am I wrong that it's not getting the best reviews in the world?
I haven't looked at the reviews at all.
I've only seen a handful of. I've heard some people call it the worst Marvel movie ever.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Just a couple random. I mean, I know it's all because it's you know her fate, so that, you know she's not going to die in this. But that's how you've kind of known that a lot, other than Robert Downey Jr. not signing contracts. He's the only one that could have died at any point in any of these movies. But because of that, I thought it was a fine action movie. I thought it was really good. Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson are amazing action stars. As much as I'd rather see them in Match Point or Under the Skin or Midsummer or Little Women or whatever else they've done, they are definitely really cool action stars, up there with Charlize Theron. I mean, the three of them could be the three biggest right now as far as, you know, leads that could lead an action movie right now. I thought it was really good, really entertaining.
Yeah, I like the set pieces. I like the action. I like the pace. I thought it was relatively relentless in its presentation, which I appreciated. It doesn't slow down a lot, and she's just so charismatic. It's effortless for her. The acting is just, she's not on remote control, but she's just it's so second skin for her. It's something that just comes from her so naturally, and that's really just a testament to her talent as well as Florence Pugh. David Harbour is not an actor I care for. I think everything he does is really, really hammy. I don't think he knows how to be a movie star, and I think he's out of his depth. Honestly, I know that's not a fair criticism, but it's how I feel about it. He tends to over-present everything that he does. He did it in Hellboy. He's doing it here. And I don't know. Maybe TV is just a better realm for him.
He doesn't ruin the movie, but I get what you're saying. And Rachel Weisz, too. Both of them are kind of doing I mean, she's a great actress, too. Don't get me wrong. But them together, it almost adds this comic relief that's not... It's not a natural fit with the movie. It's not unnatural enough that it takes you out of it, but it's just kind of, I don't know. It was definitely the weakest part of the movie for me. And when it does slow down is when they all get back together. And it just a little lull in the middle of the movie. Very short. They get right past it and go right back to the action. But none of it ruined the movie for me. I would just say that was the weakest part of it, but I still like the movie quite a bit.
Yeah. I find Scarlett Johansson to be so entertaining, and Florence Pugh is just so very good that none of the other stuff really mattered to me. Just watching their dynamic, they bounced off of each other so perfectly. The rhythm between the two of them was just perfectly on point, and it looks as if Florence Pugh is going to be kind of taking her place in the Marvel universe, which again gives a kind of perfect symmetry to her exiting this stage and moving on to another one, which I really appreciated.
I just hope she gets a chance to keep doing the movies that I like her in the most. Because Scarlett Johansson didn't get to do as many of those while she was playing the role of Black Widow. In a lot of ways, she's one of the original 5. Is that what it is? Iron Man, her, Hulk, Thor, and Captain America. And I guess if you want to throw Hawkeye in there. And
Florence Pugh apparently graduating to the Hawkeye series next. That's where she's headed.
Yeah, if you watched it after the credit scene.
Yeah.
And has Julie Louis-Dreyfus been in anything before, or is this
Falcon and the Winter Soldier? I didn't watch it, but apparently she's part of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I could watch those two, Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson, do, buddy cop movies for the next 20 years, because they really do bounce off each other really well. I mean, Mel Gibson, Danny Glover level of well. It's really, really, it's a fun movie to watch. Did you go to the theater, or did you get to watch it on Disney Plus?
I saw it in the theater. You watched it on Disney Plus?
Well, my whole family watched it, so by the time, and I wanted to get the show in, so you got to add 30, 45 minutes there and back in order to, if you want to watch it in the theater. But it still held up. I liked it quite a bit.
I got to see it in D-Box. This is a good movie for D-Box, those seats that move with the movie, because this movie, like I said, it's relentless in its way. The action really is kind of constant. And so it is a fun movie to watch with the moving seats.
Yeah, I often go to the D-Box when I can, because by the time when I decide to see a movie in the theater, it's like so late that those are the only seats left. Which is probably your same thing too, I'd imagine, with being a critic. You get what's left over. But yeah, some movies are better than others on the D-Box. Anything else on Black Widow other than I feel bad. All the Marvel movies spend a lot more time on, but
I just think I think this is a really good movie. It's maybe like second tier, like next to Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 and those, but it's better than Thor 2. It's better than most of the other Marvel movies, I would say. Just like right underneath the great Marvel movies.
And it's only because I think it could have been a great Marvel movie if there was still more story to tell in that Infinity War Endgame arc. But because they'd already closed that chapter, there wasn't only so much they could do. So I think that's why it seems lesser than. But I still love the character.
I like that they framed this in a way that this is happening in the midst of I guess kind of in the midst of right at the start of Civil War. I guess is where this is set.
Like right after the fight or whatever.
Yeah, and so it explains where everybody else is. Like all the people who might be there to help her either are on Iron Man's side and opposed to her, or they're in jail, or if it's Cap, he's in the middle of a fight with Iron Man. So that gives you're not wondering, well, why isn't she getting any help with this?
And they did a good enough job in those movies letting you know that she does run off for a little bit on her own. So I don't know, it all works. There's nothing that ruins any of those movies in here.
It did well to keep the continuity.
Yes, absolutely. Anything else on Black Widow before we move on?
I'm eager to hear what Josh thinks. I wish we had Josh right now. I think he would have something interesting to say, but we'll talk to him later. Yeah,
he went and saw Dachra over the weekend. He invited me to go. You like this kind of music, don't you? I was like, yeah, but I can't Friday night.
It sounds like somebody's dad inviting them to a rock concert. It's like, you like this kind of music, right? Yeah, sure, Dad, I do.
Now, in fairness, he does like the 80s stuff, so. And
I love Dream Warrior, but not for the reason that it's good.
Now he was going because of Great White or Jack Russell from Great White, but I guess it was a big deal because George Lynch joined him.
Oh wow!
The show was all over the rock news, but I'm sure Josh doesn't know who George Lynch is. Anyway, let's move on.
Welcome back to Doc and Talk. Talking. That's better.
Talking. How I became a superhero. I forgot to put my pictures up. Let's do that real quick.
I actually didn't get to see this one today.
Oh, lucky you.
Why does it suck?
I couldn't. It didn't grab my interest.
It's a French superhero movie, right?
Yeah, it just didn't do much for me. Netflix.
I saw like the first 5 minutes of it, and then I got busy doing something else. That's not.
Yeah, my pictures aren't popping up as a option here.
Uh-oh.
But it's giving me Problem Child 2 instead of there we go. So yeah, this is what we talked about, Black Widow.
Yeah.
This is what we won't talk about, how I became a super. I mean, it was boring. I had a hard time staying in it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a couple years old.
Oh, is it?
Netflix just picked it up.
Huh.
But I mean,
I had intended to watch it. I even started it, but like I said, I had to do something else.
Yeah, maybe if I knew the actors, it would have been different. But I was definitely checking out and checking my phone a lot, so I really can't even add anything to it.
All I noticed was that there was a magician or something.
Something like that. Anyway, let's move on to No Loss, No Gain.
No Loss, No Gain is a kind of like a stage play in many ways. It's a tiny little movie about a group of bank robbers who are not traditional bank robbers. They are computer hackers. And you remember that thing that happened with Wells Fargo not all that long ago, the bank?
Absolutely.
where they were essentially robbing their customers and creating all these fake accounts.
Yep.
And nobody went to jail and nobody got in trouble.
Nope.
And that's kind of where this movie begins. Essentially, is the group of bank robbers who break into this bank. They come in just the last minute. And there are still several customers there, and they take over the bank. They've got masks on. They're covered up, and they're going to take all these people hostage. And essentially, it looks like a bank robbery, but in many ways, it's not a bank robbery. So they've got all these people there specifically to take them hostage and hold them in this room. And then they're going to, instead of stealing all the money, they've come up with a way to hack the system to where they're going to take a large chunk of money from the CEO's account and put that into the account of these people. And it's such an insignificant amount of money to the CEO and to the company that they'll hardly even notice it's gone. All these people will have more money than they've ever had in their life. This is essentially just these guys are hacking them to kind of make them pay a price when they didn't actually pay a price. And it sets up a scenario where they can go to the cops or they can try and figure out where this is happening, because they've got so many banks, they don't even know which bank this is, mm-hmm. which makes it kind of funny in that way. But he makes sure that the bank robbers make sure that the CEO knows that they're doing this and knows that they're taking his money. So he knows that's happening. And he doesn't want it to happen, but at the same time, if he does try and stop it or figure out a way to stop it, figure out where they're doing this, he could call undue attention to what they're doing, which would then expose him and his relationship with a United States senator in a way that he probably doesn't want televised. He doesn't want people to talk about this. So he's in this position, the CEO character, in this position where if he does something about this, people might find out and be reminded what a criminal is. But if he doesn't do something about it, they get away with millions of dollars, each of these people. Sorry. And so that's the kind of conundrum he's in. Meanwhile, in the room, all this stuff is happening. The bank robber's explaining this to the people that he's holding in this room and kind of telling them. And there's some of them who are going, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm not a criminal. I don't want to take anybody's money. Even if they'll never know, even if nobody will ever know, I'll know, and I don't feel right about it. Others are like, give me the money, I'll take it. Yeah. And there's kind of that back and forth. Two of them are kind of painted a bit, right wing in their way, because they're kind of speaking up on behalf of the company, a company that doesn't care about them and has really just taken them for granted and stolen their money, and they're still kind of speaking up on their behalf because I don't know, they feel like they could get caught more than anything, and it does kind of expose people morally in that way. The movie should be better than it is because it's got such a big idea, but it spends the last half hour re-explaining everything it's been talking about throughout the entire movie as if they didn't feel like they had a long enough movie. And so you go through and you see everybody's basic motivations for why they did what they did and who was in on it and who wasn't. And that part kind of makes me kind of hesitate about how much I like this movie. I like the overall idea of this kind of Robin Hood bank robber hacker character. I found that very interesting, but the fact that they don't feel like they had enough story and they had to go back through the story and retell it in a way, that kind of pulled me out of the movie a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds like a neat idea. So they were allowed to use like the Wells Fargo logos and all that stuff?
No.
Oh, okay. Did they call it Wells Fargo or they called it a different name?
They called it a different name. Yeah, they didn't give the bank a name.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's not hard to figure out who they were talking about. They were talking about everything that Wells Fargo did and how nobody went to jail, and that's the Wells Fargo story.
Oh yeah, I could even elaborate on that if you guys wanted to hear that. Cause my company is a Wells Fargo customer, and man, did it suck. That's when the PPP loans came out. Because of that scenario, they couldn't help any of their customers out because they got themselves all screwed. So I think they were losing some to a lot of more local banks, which is a cool thing. A lot of our local bankers got fired just because Wells Fargo decided to streamline things even more.
Nobody went to jail, though. Nobody got punished.
No. Well, the people got punished for the ones not doing anything wrong. They lost their job to go find another job.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Accountability.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is that's kind of what this whole movie is about, is kind of figuring out some sort of, way to punish them in a way that, and it does feel kind of satisfying to watch the CEO character kind of squirm a little bit, and also doing like some really hardcore scheming at the same time. That is kind of fun. There's kind of a catharsis to that in a way that I appreciated.
That's awesome. Too bad they couldn't have pulled it off. So that'd have been a really cool movie. Again, Adam McKay needs to make that movie. I can't pronounce this one, so go ahead.
Dachra. Directed by Abdelhamid Bouchnak. This is the first horror film ever made by Tunisian filmmakers. Tunisia's got a film industry, but they've never had a horror film before. You can tell this is very much influenced by American horror movies. It's not a found footage movie, but it's definitely got echoes of Blair Witch, echoes of movies similar to that, about urban legends and so on. The idea here is that three journalism students are tasked with finding an original story to tell, and an exclusive original story, so one that hasn't been told and told and told again. There are a lot of stories in Tunisia about the revolution that's been happening there, and their teacher's like, we've told that story a few times. Let's move on and find something original to do. The original idea that these three come up with is that one of them happens to have a story about a woman who was found on the side of the road. She was nude, her throat was cut, she was badly beaten. She was rescued somehow and survived all of that, but she went crazy. She turned basically feral and started attacking people, and so they put her in an asylum. And now the asylum kind of pretends that she's not there, to the point where when they actually get some permission to talk to somebody in charge there, they don't want to talk to them, and they pretend that this woman doesn't exist, but she does, and they pay off a guard to let them in the middle of the night, and they actually get to meet this woman, and she's scary, and she reacts, and the main female character in the movie, she scratches her on the arm like really bad, and like we watch as she kills a guard after that, and it's like she's legit like feral, like she's frightened. Instead of putting her off the story, this only kind of intrigues her more. So she wants to go to the place where this woman was found, and she wants to find the village that she was in when she did this. And of course, this is a terrible idea, but they go through with it anyway. And then of course that leads them to this village that is super creepy. The first thing they see when they get there is this little girl in the forest just biting into a pigeon, just ripping the thing wide open like it was KFC, but uncooked and unclipped, like just gross. And she's got just this look at this crazed look in her eye, and somehow this doesn't put them off. They keep going. They get to this village. None of the women are allowed to speak. There's only one man there, and he's really friendly. He's really super friendly. He's way too inviting. And of course, we know from what we've seen earlier in the movie why he's being this way, because he's got a very serious motive behind him to do this. And there's also some other things set up from the past that come back and pay off. This is really good. This takes a lot of American influence, like I said, and does something very bold and daring with it, because it's a much more violent, much more visceral version. Like, we've seen the neutered version of this in America before, but I don't think we've seen the hardcore, bloody, gory version. This kind of pushes the limits on the violence a little bit, the blood. A lot of it's implied, but a lot of it you can actually see too. And it's I was impressed by that. I was impressed by how they aren't really held back in the way that our system with the rating system kind of holds our movies back a little bit.
But in addition to that, our studio system neuters a story usually too, and ruins a great idea over and over again. It sounds like here they were able to stick with the writer and director's vision as opposed to the studio coming in and, like you said, neutering it. This sounds fantastic. This sounds like a really good movie. Is it available right now?
Yeah, it's available right now. It's available for streaming rental, I believe.
I have to go rent this when we're done. What time is it? Show over yet? This looks really, really good. If you're watching on YouTube, it's a kind of a neat poster. Very, like you said, Western.
Yeah.
But
you'll recognize a lot of the beats of this story, but it's still it has moments that are just a little bit bloodier and more daring, and solid performances, really well directed.
All right, let's move on to our classic, Ghost World.
Ghost World stars Thora Birch, Scarlett Johansson, and Steve Buscemi in the story of a pair of female friends who kind of have essentially a falling out. Thora Birch is the main character here, and it's just she's in her own little world. She has these little fascinations, and her latest fascination becomes Steve Buscemi, who she meets when she and Scarlett Johansson are playing a prank on him. He'd put a personal ad in the newspaper about a missed connection with a woman, and they pretended to be her and led him to this place and seemingly to make fun of him. But she's kind of growing tired of making fun of people, and that's really the story here, is that if she's not going to be snarky all the time, if she's not going to make fun of things all the time, she's not going to be negative to people all the time, then who is she? What is she going to become? And she doesn't know. And that loss of identity that she's dealing with coming out of high school and looking toward the real world without a plan, and with only this negative attitude that she's had all her life, who is she now? And Scarlett Johansson's character is kind of growing up, and she's got a job, and she's looking to get out into the world and have a home to live in, and all those things that adults do. And she doesn't know that she wants to do that, Thora Birch. And so she's kind of left out that. She kind of gloms on to Buscemi in many ways just to have something to do that isn't what she normally does. Like I said, she has these passing fascinations. It can be Indian music of the 60s. It could be, punk rock. It could be anything at any moment that just kind of catches her for a second, and she's intrigued by it. And this is a really interesting movie about growing up and figuring out who you are. And that's it's a very bold to make that movie, because nobody makes that movie. It's hard to make that movie. It's hard to describe what this movie is because it has a plot per se, but it's about her and about revealing her and about bringing her around. Her arc is essentially going from having an attitude of superiority to not knowing who she is. That's the angle that's the trajectory we're going on here, and that is not an easy that's not an easy arc to tell. And I that's why I love this movie so much.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because a lesser movie would have been neutered, I guess, is we'll go back to that word. Because, she's using everybody around her to try to identify who she is. When someone asks her what she wants, she responds, "What do you want?" And she's ruining their lives by trying to avoid growing up and understanding who she is. And I just find that, it's really, really cool the way they pulled it off without making it kind of shitty, because it's easy to screw this movie up, and they didn't do that, and I think that's pretty impressive. I'd watch a sequel to this where, she hyped on that figurative bus, but in real life she, traveled, 6, 7, 8 hours away, started a new life, started working at a bank, married a grocery store manager or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably a boring movie.
It might not be.
Because once you grow up, life's kind of boring. But I don't know. I just found it's an easy movie to watch. It's really cool to see these two at such a young age. Although she'd already had American Beauty, I think, at this point, and she was kind of recognizable. And obviously,
this was Scarlett just starting out. Yeah, she was kind of a discovery in this movie.
Yeah, and she was really good in it, and that was kind of cool.
I loved her monotone. Like, she really seemed to understand this character, and she played a very specific beat throughout, vocally even. She was just this very flat monotone that but very straightforward, very authentic. And it's hard to do that for a first time actor to not feel like you're acting, and she didn't feel like she was acting. It didn't feel like she was putting anything on. It was it's such a unique. She's got a unique beat that she's playing, and that's a sign of a really great actor, to find that thing, that motivation within your character that gives you your purpose, and she found that.
Well, just like Florence Pugh, I mean, they both started off being with great acting performances, and that's how they got to become stars. And I'm looking forward to see what she does next. You know, I'm both of them really. I mean, even Thora Birch. I'd love to see some more A24 movies out of any of these actors.
Yeah, it's straight. I don't even know what Thora Birch does anymore. I don't feel like I've heard from her in years.
She popped on Maron's podcast a while back, like a year or two ago, but I don't remember. It just kind of interesting, but not. I can't really remember what she was doing. But I think it's more by choice than anything.
That's good.
Because she did kind of blow up pretty quick there, and American Beauty was a huge movie, and
yeah,
I don't know, but this is I mean, everybody knows this movie, but it's definitely it's kind of forgotten about in a way too, because I had seen it, I just didn't remember what happened in it, so it was nice to go back and rewatch it. And I know I liked it better this time around than I did the first time around, and I remember liking it, but
I feel like I got it more now than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, it was more of I appreciated this movie, and I really was like, these are the kind of girls that I was into, in 2001. Probably still am now, but it was definitely like an attraction sort of situation. Now I feel like I was understanding it more as an adult,
right?
And viewing this as, a young person, moving out into the world for the first time. It's kind of seeing that aspect of it for not the first time. I certainly saw it then, but I really feel like I saw it more this time.
Well, we weren't that removed from it, from being that age. And I might have, I guess I'm a couple of years older than Scarlett Johansson, probably the same age as Thora Birch. So I was kind of in that same age anyway, so I definitely would have missed a lot of it, and not, like, I think I got it on a higher level, but like the kind of the deeper part of it, I definitely missed. And the figurative bus would have, she committed suicide at the end. That's kind of how I probably took it back then, versus it's just more of her moving on with her life and finally getting to that point.
What did you think of Buscemi?
That was a very brave performance. I couldn't do that. I mean, not that I could act ever, but that's just really hard. I mean, that's got to be tough as an actor to do that role.
He hated it. Not the movie. He hated the role. Like, I read somewhere that every day after it was over, he had to get those clothes off. He had to change his hair. He had to get completely out of this guy at the end of the day because he hated it so much.
Well, even I know you're at actors, but like I took Michael from Galesburg to see Steel Panther on Saturday, and they're a parody band that makes fun of 80s hair bands. The singer, his name's Herb. His stage name is Michael Starr. He's got a wife and kids and a family at home. I follow them both on Instagram. They're two polar opposites. But on stage, he's this 80 hair band, making fun of it.
Yeah.
But he's doing things, and it's a joke, and it's not real, but he's actually physically doing it. And so then being a 44-year-old guy and then having to make out with a 19-year-old girl, that just seems really weird to me, and I can't wrap my head around that. And it's that kind of, that would be really hard, I would think, for any respectable actor, maybe not some, but
to be so willingly pathetic.
Yes.
Is hard. That is hard to do.
Yeah, and he's really what holds this movie together. I mean, the girls are great, but like, she ruins his life. Like, he was perfectly happy with where he was at in life. She gives him a little bit of, it starts to make his life even better, and then takes it, not just that away, but everything else that he had away, just because of her selfishness for being that age.
Yeah.
And that, that really is, in a lot of ways, the most important role in the movie, even though she's the star. that character of his, if it's done wrong, the movie falls apart, and it's just like you said, neutered. Yeah.
This is based on a Daniel Close, what do they call it? A graphic novel.
Yeah.
And they achieved the look of this, but through the costumes more than anything. The costumes and the sets are kind of, they're not overstated, but they feel real. But at the same time, there's a comic book edge to her, and her look and her aesthetic has a kind of a comic book feel to it. His house kind of has a sort of certain feel that is kind of otherworldly in a way, that is it's perfect for the character, and that's how they evoke the comic book aspect of it, or the graphic novel aspect of it. And I really like that. It looks like no other movie, and yet feels real enough within the universe.
Yeah, I'll take this look over. What was the one? I think Richard Linklater kind of did a movie where he kind of colored over the whatever. I can't think what the name of it is.
Yeah,
and it's kind of going for the same idea. I think this one achieves it better. Just by, you don't necessarily notice it unless you're analyzing the movie, and that's what, you could just watch it, never even pick up on it. But if you pay attention, similar to those Ari Aster movies, when you start paying attention at the little nuance and details,
yeah,
that's there. That's I'll take this over anything like that ever. Yeah, this is a really good experience. I'm glad I got to go back and see it because it's been too long. And yeah, anything else on Ghost World?
If you've never seen this, you should see it. It is available, so get it, watch it, enjoy it, and have this experience.
Boyz in the Hood turns 30 along with a couple other movies. Let's start here.
Wow, this movie is still really emotional to watch. Like, it really still has this. It has a power to it that isn't dampened at all by even the very 90s look of it. Cuba Gooding Jr. plays Trey. He's moved to South Central to live with his dad, who's perfectly named. Lawrence Fishburne as Furious Styles. Like, come on, you could not think of a more perfect name. He just has that quality. And Fishburne is incredible in this movie. That he didn't get an Oscar nomination for this is shocking, because he is the heart of this whole thing. He's so good. And then, I mean, Ice Cube is so authentic and so real in this thing that when what happens, it feels so natural, and so you're so in the moment with him, with his authenticity in the role. It adds dramatic weight to it. It adds this emotion to it that you can try and resist, but I don't think you can. I don't think you can resist the emotion of this movie. It also moves very quickly. I mean, the pace of this is very brisk. It doesn't feel like it's lingering very long, but yet it's creating these indelible characters and creating this moment in Los Angeles. This very violent, terrifying moment that these people live in every single day. And you're experiencing it from very much the outside. I know I'm experiencing it from very much the outside. I've never experienced anything like this. And it takes on so much more depth now, even than it did then. You look back on it. The very specific choices that John Singleton made in making this are very pronounced. The whole thing about the police. He chooses specifically to have a black police officer be the most aggressive, because that reflects his opinion of the police, that this is what the police do to people. It can turn you against the people you would seemingly be on the side with. That power trip of being a police officer and having people's lives in your hand. That certainly is subtextually running throughout the movie. And then you've got these very lost young boys who are desperate for fathers, and the fathers, other than Furious, are absent. And that the way that absence lingers without you even you don't even notice it's not there until later, when you start to think about how lost all these little boys are, that they're killing each other because this is what they've known, and they don't have that figure in their life. that made the difference for them, that kept them out of trouble, that gave them a direction. The kind of things you expect of a father, the kind of things that anybody would expect of a really good father to do for a child. So that's running through this as well. There's so many different themes, and then you just got this very, right on point emotional anchors. Cuba Gooding Jr. is a very easy actor to identify with. He's not a big personality. You can get inside of him and kind of be him, and that's a perfect audience surrogate. Then you've got Morris Chestnut as the embodiment of all the potential in the world, to a guy who could have the entire world in his hands, and if he could just get out of this situation. And then the death of that dream, essentially, when he's killed, is just it's so powerful. Then the choices that Trey has to make in the wake of his friend's death, and the decisions that weigh upon him, and the way that his decisions are affecting the people around him, from Neil Long to Lawrence Fishburne. All of those pieces are so perfectly placed that this movie it's just emotional. It's powerful, and it's deeply compelling.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the Lawrence Fishburne stuff, because it's not like he's barely in the movie. He's in the movie a lot, but when he's not in a scene, his presence is felt in the neighborhood. And that's very well done by Lawrence Fishburne and John Singleton, as well as the other actors that allow that to exist, and it really matters. It helps pull this movie, make this movie it pulls it off. It's a very simple movie. It's a movie where when they're just little kids, I could tell you how the movie is going to play out. I mean, it's pretty predictable, and that's not by no means is that a bad thing about this movie, because in a lot of ways you don't want it to go the way you're predicting it to go, but it's pretty clear where it's going to go. And so, I mean, with that, it's just kind of a standard story with very, very emotional scenes. And as, where we live, especially where I grew up in pretty much an all-white town, not, we didn't call ourselves that, but it just kind of worked out that way. Yeah. You just hear about it through rap lyrics and this and that, and kind of the badass version of it. You miss kind of the emotional part of it. And that is really, I think what John Singleton's best trait is just capturing a great scene. The scene where Cuba Gooding Jr. is crying with his girlfriend, or the scene with Ice Cube and Cuba Gooding Jr. at the end, where you have this badass not knowing how he feels at what he just did. And you're getting real human, elements out of these characters, which, you don't get in rap lyrics. You don't get in, when the high level versions of the story without getting, digging into the weeds. And I think with all of his movies, John Singleton really, some of those scenes are so powerful, and this one in particular, that the fact that it's a pretty standard, typical story, very simple first, second, third act kind of thing. Part of me, and it's not fair, it's like, well, I'll still rather watch Do the Right Thing, but that's a different movie. I shouldn't say that. That's irrelevant. Yeah. They're not, I like the idea of something that's not as straightforward as this. However,
I would argue they're almost, even as they're only 5 or 6 years apart, this is a different generation.
Oh, it's more of the fact that Do the Right Thing's not a standard movie. It's very artistic, and this is very, straight ahead story. Which again isn't. You shouldn't. There's nothing wrong with doing a straight ahead story. It's like
it's a straight ahead story, but I would argue that it has Shakespearean elements to it.
Well, that's fine, but that's straight ahead. I mean, it's nothing wrong. All of that's fine. It's not fair for me to be doing it, is what I'm getting at.
Right.
It's like with music, you can sit and talk about jazz, or you can talk about AC/DC. That doesn't mean AC/DC sucks.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. But the scenes, that's really the best part. he does such a great job of capturing individual scenes, and throughout the rest of his career too. As we're going to go through the 90s, we'll be talking about all these movies. I remember being a kid loving these movies, and as I got older, kind of having the American History X opinion of when I go back to them. This one I had never seen, so I don't have that opinion of this movie. It's very good. It's very well acted. It's just, I don't know. I just keep coming back to the scenes that are really powerful and moving, and I wish people, it's kind of like when we talk about when we want a Trump supporter to watch something, and so they would change their mind. It's like, why can't the people who are in these scenarios watch this movie and realize you don't got to do what you're, stop the violence, whatever. And it's just, some of it's like, God, if you just gone and eaten something, the ending doesn't play out the way it does. All I had to do was not do this, or if you don't get mad when you get your shoulder bumped, all the little things, split decisions that change the course of your life. There's just a lot here. It's very.
You made an interesting point where you're talking about Fishburne before that I kind of want to touch on them again, is that when people do talk about Fishburne when he's not in the scene, it's not like a Poochie thing where it's like he's the most important guy in the movie that they have to talk about even though he's not there. It's a thing. It's reminding you of what's absent in everybody else's life. Mm-hmm. When you mentioned Furious, you're talking about what's missing from everybody else's life, which is that guy, that father. It's not to say that a mom can't do what he does. They're doing the best they can. It's just the importance of a father in this situation is amplified. It's certainly something that means something within this community that he's speaking to very specifically and speaking about very specifically. And so I think when they talk about him, they're calling attention to what's missing everywhere else.
Yeah, and they do spend a fair amount of time early on with Angela Bassett's character explaining why she's not there, and it's to better her life and to better their lives together overall. Right. They're separated, but yeah, it's definitely not saying anything bad about mothers.
No,
but they're just one parent in all these scenarios, and you can feel the way that Trey's elevated, as the chance of him succeeding is greater because of that. Everybody just knows it automatically. He dresses different. He has a different work ethic. He carries himself differently, and that matters. And the guy with all the potential, even more so than Trey's character, Morris Chestnut's character, he doesn't even carry himself like Trey does. Those two bond, and they're the best friends in the movie. And all of it's back to that, the way they just establish everything early on. And I mean,
Morris Chestnut is very interesting. It's a good performance for what it's supposed to. It exists for a very specific reason. He exists to die. He exists to represent a dream taken away. The American dream of succeeding and getting up and out of this situation. He is representational of all of that, and his purpose is to be the focus of tragedy. That's where it's supposed to be, and it's a remander of having all the potential in the world and having that snuffed out. And just in a more general, what do you want to call it? His symbolism. He is he's a death of a dream in human form. That's what he exists to be, and I like that he doesn't fill in too much as a character, because again, he is more of a representation, a commentary on how people in these neighborhoods see this type of potential a lot, and they see it taken away. They see America taking away the dream that this guy represents in many ways, and that's a big. There's a lot of big ideas in this movie.
Yeah, and maybe I'm off base, but even Trey Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, he has a privilege the other ones don't have in having the father, and it's not white privilege by any means, but it's the first step towards it, and. Right. He's gonna get out of this. His mom got out of this, and it's just really neat how I don't know how to explain it without you just kind of have to watch it. But It's very real. I mean, none of it feels fake. It doesn't feel like, those pretty cancer movies where they heighten everything.
Yeah.
And that very easily could have been what this movie was, pretty racism or whatever. It's very grounded in reality while, like you said, I mean, you're right with the Shakespearean thing. It's a commentary, but even where it's heightened, the commentary, I don't know, it's just all woven together so perfectly that it makes for a very watchable movie, but a movie with very emotional scenes throughout that really are hard to forget. I think they're just going to be etched, and anybody who's seen it probably has always had them etched in their memory.
I got emotional just seeing Morris Chestnut in that white shirt because I know what's going to happen. He's specifically wearing white for a very specific reason, and that shirt's going to be covered in blood. It's going to turn red, very red, and it's terrifying to see that change. That it's a piece of costume design, but it's a smart use of costume. And when I saw it and remembered, oh shit, we're here now, I got emotional. And then you see Cuba Gooding Jr. turn around and yell his name, and he's so nonchalant. Norris Chestnut at that moment, like it went from being so heightened and terrifying to now I'm just back to normal. I'll just walk home, and it wasn't back to normal. And we knew that, and he didn't, and that just gives it so much more emotion. This movie gets better over time. It gains something over time.
Yeah. And it's just so frustrating. There's nothing you can do about it. It's a hell of a movie. And I do agree that, I don't know that anybody else really deserves an Oscar nomination, but Lawrence Fishburne for sure should have gotten a supporting actor nomination for this. But yeah, anything else on Boyz in the Hood?
If you've never seen it, you should watch it. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I feel like I watched it for free on Amazon, maybe. So it's available.
Peacock. I believe it's Peacock.
I think I saw it on Amazon, so it's probably on Peacock too then. I think I watched it with commercials. Maybe IMDb had it through Amazon. Anyway, it's there for you to watch.
Yeah, and
it's
this may be the best movie of '91.
Sounds of the Lambs.
Again, I got a more of an emotional connection to this than I do that.
I know, but sometimes something's just so strong it outweighs emotion for me. Speaking of great performances,
I don't think this came out this week.
Said it did on Wikipedia. I don't know how it could have because Bill and Ted comes out next week.
Yeah, I don't think this came out this week.
But according to Wikipedia, it does. It did.
Point Break, starring Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, is a very stupid movie about bank robbers who dress as the dead presidents and
surf.
They rob banks and they surf. And what is Keanu's character's name? Johnny Utah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
David Wyoming.
I mean, I don't think.
This movie's so stupid.
Keanu's certainly been worse. I don't think Swayze's been worse.
Yeah, no. Bodie.
And Gary Busey, this is the first time I remember him being, really, like, the accident seems to really have started to affect his acting, as far as I could tell. Yeah. But I don't really.
It's a very normal, very, very straightforward Busey performance, I thought.
Maybe I don't remember it that well. I think maybe it was. I thought this was the first time I started acting crazy. Maybe I'm wrong. It's been so long. So forgive me. I did not watch that this week.
I didn't either because I don't know if it came out this week or not. I guess maybe it did.
Well, either way, our source said it did, so it's not like it's going to pop up later on.
We don't need to talk about this ever again. It's a bad movie. It's got a great soundtrack, though. There's one song in that soundtrack. There's a Concrete Blonde song in that soundtrack that is one of my favorite songs of all time. Like, just absolutely incredible. And it's got one of Rat's best song on there as well.
All right, and then there's Regarding Henry.
regarding Henry stars Harrison Ford as Henry. He's a high-powered New York lawyer who goes out for cigarettes one night and gets shot in the head in the middle of an armed robbery. He ends up in the hospital in a coma for a while, and then when he wakes up, he's got to learn how to talk and walk and do life again and try and remember his wife and remember his life. And it's not great. It should be better than it is. It's lacking in just certain ways that Harrison Ford's performance isn't clicking with Mike Nichols' direction. He and Annette Bening are kind of on the same page, but he seems to be doing something just a little bit different than she's doing. It's just a little bit off in just every possible little way, adding up to a movie that is certainly not poorly made or even poorly acted. It's just kind of three people at the center who aren't really doing the same thing.
Right. Yeah, even the poster, Harrison Ford looks like he doesn't quite know what he's doing.
This is obviously a post being shot in the head.
Yes. But I mean, as an actor, he doesn't quite look like he's. It seems like one of those, performances that make fun of in Tropic Thunder, where the actor takes himself too seriously.
Yeah, he's like he has to be very childlike after coming out of being shot. He is almost kind of childlike in a way, and that's not really Harrison Ford's strength to play that.
They should have put Harrison Ford in Point Break and Gary Busey in this.
Somewhere there's a universe where that happened.
I hope so. I wish I was in it. Right.
Actually, Swayze would be better than Harrison Ford would in this. I think from that kind of soap opera direction, he's much more of a soap opera actor than Harrison Ford is.
Harrison Ford is more of a paycheck type actor, if I've noticed, based on interviews he's done. All right, that is our show. Next week, we've got Space Jam: A New Legacy. Our classic's going to be Space Jam. Other movies coming out that we may or may not talk about: Gunpowder Milkshake on Netflix. Escape Room: Tournament of Champions. Is that coming to theaters? I don't know.
I think so.
Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey turns 30, as well as Dutch, starring Al Bundy.
We'll also be talking about Pig next week.
Pig. Starring Nick Cage.
My review of Pig, starring Nicolas Cage, drops tomorrow. I'm not going to give anything away, but whoever called this movie John Wick with a pig is a true asshole. They've done this movie a great disservice. That's not what this is.
I hadn't heard that, so that's good to know. Not to think about John Wick when I watch it.
It's a really straightforward drama. It's a very actorly movie, and yeah.
Since I'm assuming there won't be a lot to talk about with the Space Jam movies, any interest in watching that other Willy's Wonderland, or whatever the fuck it was called, the Nick Cage movie?
I've been wanting to see it ever since I heard about it. It'll be a nice opposite to Pig.
Plus, I don't really plan on watching Bogus Journey, and I don't know that I plan on watching Dutch either, if I'm being honest.
I don't think Dutch is available.
That makes it even better.
Yeah, I've tried to watch. For some reason, I think I had a reason to look up Dutch, and it's not available at all for like music rights reasons or something.
That makes sense.
No, that's what I was looking into. I was doing a list for the year of things that we're watching, and yeah, when I went to put in where to find Dutch later on in the year, it just wasn't available anywhere.
Well, that's no fun. All right, before we let you go, I want to remind you, we'll do Flickchart, but I want to remind you to head over to ihatecritics.net and click on the TeePublic link if you want to buy some of our merch. We're also patreon.com/criticspod to get yourself a credit on the show and help support the podcast. And if you want a copy of a couple Blu-ray copies, head over to our Facebook and Twitter pages and read the details. Basically, if you leave us a 5-star review on any of the platforms you listen to, and then let us know you did it, we'll read your review on the air, and you'll get yourself a copy of one of 2 movies. Is that I don't remember what they are.
Yeah, The Great War of Archimedes and Deliver Us from Evil. There may be new ones coming too.
All right.
We shall see.
So let's move over to Flickchart here really quick and knock a few of them out. Hopefully they're kind to us. Give us some fun ones to do. Ed TV on the waterfront.
On the waterfront.
Yes. RoboCop Scare Package?
Never heard of Scare Package.
Neither have I.
2019, wow.
RoboCop Raising Arizona.
Raising Arizona by a lot.
Mm-hmm. Smokey and the Bandit, The Hangover.
The Hangover.
Agreed. Les Mis, Don.
Never heard of it.
Neither have I. Les Mis, She's All That.
Not hard at all. It's Les Mis.
Agreed.
I hate She's All That.
Child's Play, The Lady Killers.
Even the weakest Coen Brothers movie is better than Child's Play.
Weakest Coen Brothers movie is better than a lot of movies. Muppets Most Wanted, The Goonies.
Muppets Most Wanted.
Yeah, I think I agree. History of the World Part 1, Duck Soup.
R.I.P. Richard Donner, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he directed Goonies. That's why it made me think of it. Duck Soup.
Agreed.
History of the World's great, though, as well.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's a bummer we're not going to get Lethal Weapon 5 with him directing it like they've been talking about for 20 years. But yeah, he was in his 90s, wasn't he? So he lived a life.
Yeah.
The Duel, Brokeback Mountain.
Never heard of it.
Oh, good.
Never heard of The Duel.
Neither have I. The Abyss, Brokeback Mountain.
Brokeback Mountain.
Witness, Man of Steel.
I'm just fascinated. It's interesting. Like the amount that I think people our age have changed over the last, since Brokeback Mountain came out. Like when that movie came out, people were afraid to say they liked it. You know, guys were afraid to say you like Brokeback Mountain. I know what that means. And we've changed we've come so far from that, and I appreciate that. Far enough, obviously. There's still a lot of awful human beings out there. But I think we've kind of grown up a little bit away from that idea that people can't appreciate art with gay men in it without having to worry about having their masculinity questioned.
And I enjoyed, because I never really cared about my masculinity being questioned.
Right.
Making people
I didn't either. I'm just saying.
Making people uncomfortable. Like, you know, that. Like, I lived in a town with a lot of Catholics. It was a very Catholic town, and when they asked me what I wanted to win the Oscar, at that point, I hated everything but Brokeback Mountain, and Sin City and Devil's Rejects weren't Oscar movies, so Brokeback Mountain, it was easy for me to say that, and it really made people uncomfortable. Like, really? You watched that? You weren't embarrassed? No, it's really good. Nope. 2 great performances. Really, more than 2. Everybody in the movie was great, but 2 very strong performances to lead there. Yeah.
It's just nice to know. I think we're growing away from that. And those people are now being those people who say shit like that, who try and bring other people down or try and mock people for liking that, those people are now in the shadows. We've pushed them away, and that's a good thing.
Or they're yelling cancel culture.
That's true.
Although it sucks because you have like normal people yelling cancel culture too, and it's like, it's not a thing. I know you just because somebody gets on Twitter and is an asshole about something that doesn't matter doesn't mean you're canceled.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais is a fucking moron. He was on Twitter the other day. Oh, you couldn't make The Office today. Yeah, no, people are too sensitive. You couldn't make The Office today. No, we couldn't make your version of The Office, dickhead, because it was based off of a lot of shitty talk. Whereas the version of The Office that we got over here, far superior.
Well, and you could have
They could go back to that today.
But you'd be surprised at what you'd still get away with. It's stupid.
It's bizarre that he thinks that Michael Scott isn't the joke. That's what gets me. He doesn't understand that Michael Scott was the joke. Apparently, he doesn't get it because he thinks that character was apparently a good thing, I guess.
Well, I think there are people that don't get that Michael Scott is a joke, and those people do yell shit on Twitter and try to cancel shit. But they get ignored. Nobody listens to them. No one takes it seriously.
Right.
They're just loud on Twitter, which is 20% of the country. So, I mean, that's why even pay attention to it.
That's why Carell is so brilliant, because if we saw Michael Scott today, he'd be talking about cancel culture and we would be laughing at him. Right. He'd do it in a way that would be obvious that he's the joke for bringing that up.
Right. And other, lesser people, Adam Sandler's tried to be that a million times, and he's never quite accomplished it. And in hindsight, kind of comes off a little offensive. I think his intent is well, but he's not as good as Steve Carell, at least in those type of movies. So yeah, it's some people just are annoying. Witness, Man of Steel.
Witness.
I like Superman snapping necks.
I kind of like Man of Steel too. I think Witness is a good movie though.
In fairness, I haven't seen it, so I'll go with you. I just not a Harrison Ford fan. Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, Wanted.
Mission Impossible.
I should flip it just to be a dick, but I'll let you have it. The Simpsons movie, Vanilla Sky.
Legitimately difficult choice for me here. The Simpsons movie, because it is so consistently funny, and I grew up on The Simpsons. Not that I didn't grow up on Cameron Crowe, but it's just that Vanilla Sky is the least Cameron Crowe movie. And the Simpsons movie is The Simpsons at its best. So
I agree. Captain America, The First Avenger, The Proposal.
Both really good movies. The Proposal is very funny. I'm going to go Captain America because I think that's just a really classic action movie, but I love The Proposal.
I agree. Sister Act, Eastern Promises.
Eastern Promises.
Absolutely. El Mariachi, Walk the Line.
El Mariachi.
As Good as It Gets, The Rundown.
I'm fascinated to see if As Good as It Gets holds up.
Which we've been saying for like 10 years.
I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
Because I still have fond memories of it, but I don't know if it'll hold up when I watch it again.
I mean, there's a reason we haven't gone back to it.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like homework, whether it is or isn't. That's part of why it's not really like fun to watch.
Yeah.
Kung Fu Panda 2, The Apartment.
The Apartment. One of my all-time favorites.
Halloween H2O, The Hot Chick.
H2O. I kind of like H2O.
For his Twitter rant alone, I'll go H2O. Did you hear that at all?
No.
He was claiming the Second Amendment is designed so that we don't have to take the vaccine. Like, we should.
Who said that?
Rob Schneider got on Twitter saying we should not. No, he wants all his followers to, the right to choose what to do with your body, which is fair. That's true. But that's what the Second Amendment was designed for, is the right to choose to do with your body. So people were responding with like, so you want us to shoot the vaccines?
Oh my God. What a moron. What an absolute idiot.
Yeah. Dukes of Hazzard once.
Was there another movie there?
Well, Batman the Killing Joke, but it's a cartoon.
Oh, okay.
Assuming you
all
haven't
right,
seen it.
fair. Well, once, obviously.
Yeah. Epic movie, Frequency. American Sniper, 13.
Tough. That is tough. 13 is a hell of a movie. Fuck. I'm completely torn. What do you think?
It's been so long since I've seen 13, and recency bias is leaning me towards American Sniper, even though because the intensity of that movie was something else.
It was.
So I mean, I guess I'm leaning American Sniper, but I don't think it's fair because it's been so long since I've seen 13, and American Sniper is still pretty fresh, even though it's been 7 years.
Man, yeah, flip a coin.
And the winner is 13.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I think it's a really great movie.
I remember liking it. It's been so long. What Happens in Vegas? Closer.
Closer is a fucking awesome movie.
Yes, it is.
People really slept on that one.
This is possibly the last one we're going to do, depending on how Sean reacts. Avatar: Crocodile Dundee 2. Or do we just turn it off before you say an answer?
I'm going to go back to the old favorite, Fishing with Gandhi.